Hi everyone, this is Darren with SimNation doing a quick recap video for WWPF, which is our Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2025 League here at SimNation. We've just completed week 13. We're getting closer to the playoffs, and some of the playoff pictures starting to clear up a little bit. There's still a lot of uncertainty. So we'll just dive straight in and we'll kind of talk about what happened last week in week 13. Just minimize this real quick. So if we go back to week 13, what you'll see is Cotton and DWK were playing each other in a North Division game. Of course, DWK won that one 16-7. Same thing for Detroit versus Minnesota. This is Superman versus Starfinder. Starfinder, I think, got the win here, and definitely he'll be happy about that. Carolina versus Tampa Bay. This was Invisible Witness. He kind of got stunned a little bit by Tampa Bay. That result was an upset, especially given how Invisible's been playing as of late. And yeah, that one shocked us all. But if I remember correctly, Tampa Bay is MBB Mets. So good win for him, and kind of maybe made the number one seed a little bit closer. This is Templar versus the CPU. Good win for Templar by 20 points. He'll definitely like that. Udo versus the CPU. Udo got the win. He's now at 5-7. Um, Arizona versus San Francisco. So this is Simon versus Stuart. Stuart got the win here, which will help in what is a very competitive NFC West. You can see here that Flores and Garcia helped. And then this is Barry versus Bobby. Right now, LA's on a little bit of a tailspin at 8-4 after starting really strong. Part of that has to do with Goldman's maybe not playing as good as he normally does, but the defense has been a struggle for Barry and LA Rams this season. Bio Eagle versus Baltimore. This was a division game. Bio won that game and still playing pretty well. So that's a good win for them. Cincinnati versus Pittsburgh. This is Collie versus me. And Pittsburgh edges out Cincinnati despite a really, really wild fourth quarter, with both teams scoring 37 points just in one quarter. Good to see Lackey having some rushing attempts, as he's probably in his last deal. Jacksonville has a new coach, but he wasn't coaching yet. Jacksonville versus Houston. Jacksonville gets the win. They have an outside chance at maybe the playoffs. Houston is a good CPU team if you're interested in them. They definitely are still in the playoff race. Tennessee versus Indianapolis. Of course, Bama lost his matchup against Carolina, but he bounced back with a win and still 11-1, very much in the number one, number two seed picture. New England versus Buffalo. This is Shark versus CPU. The CPU kind of tripped Shark up a little bit in overtime, largely behind 6 touchdowns from Long, who's one of the more elite quarterbacks in the league. Soa versus Kevin. Soa got the win here. Kevin is still doing really well for the rebuild year. Soa is challenging Shark for the division title. Denver versus Oklahoma. This is Prince versus Peter. Peter won this one. Peter is still driving for that number one or number two seed. This one was pretty convincingly. Johnson seems to have shaken off some of the issues he had earlier in the season and is definitely going strong. San Diego versus Kansas City. This is Joe Durman versus the CPU, and CPU won this one. Both teams are 5-7. And then you have Atlanta versus New Orleans. This is the CPU against itself, and the Atlanta won this one. So if we look at the standings right now, we're starting the NFC. The North is still pretty much up in the air. There's not going to be a wild card team from the North. So it will likely be whoever wins this division will win, will get into the playoffs, everybody else won't. Right now, Detroit's on a 5-game losing streak, so is Chicago. Of course, Minnesota and Green Bay are on winning streaks. Right now, it's looking like Green Bay may get it, but again, Detroit, if they can turn around the losing streak, can get right back in it. Uh, I think Carolina, mathematically, no one's going to catch Carolina for the South. Atlanta's pretty close, and Atlanta's played themselves into a potential playoff berth, but I do expect Carolina to be the 1 seed. Now it's up in the air as who be the 2 seed. As you can see, there are a lot of teams at 8-4. The only one who probably won't be a 2 seed is whoever wins the North. But Dallas is very much in that conversation at 8-4. They've won 5 straight. They're one of the hottest teams in this side on the NFC. Udo could theoretically play himself into the playoffs. I don't see that. I think Dallas is going to be the lone representative out of the East. And then really it's going to be a toss up between Atlanta and one of the West teams as to who gets those final 2 playoff spots. Right now, LA still is kind of, they have the ability to command their own destiny, but the reality is it's the West division is going to be one of these 3 teams, and they'll be battling Dallas to see who gets the 2 seed. Initially, I would have said LA was the 1 seed, Carolina was the 2 seed, but LA's just on a 4-game losing streak. Stuart's starting to get hot, but again, these teams are just beating up on each other at this point, and there's still a little bit of division games left. I think there were 2 left between these 2 teams that will probably ultimately decide who wins the division. So as you can see, the only clarity that we have is that Dallas is going to probably win the East. Carolina is probably going to win the South and the 1 seed, although theoretically they could still lose it. Uh, and then everything else is up in the air for the playoffs. If we go to the North, Pittsburgh is living on a prayer right now. Yeah, they've won 12 straight. I'll talk about them in a second. But Cleveland is in really good shape. They are battling the East and Houston for playoff spots, but Bio definitely has them on a good trajectory right now. Baltimore and Cincinnati are largely out of it. Cincinnati and Indianapolis and Denver are all playing for top draft picks. Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and Oakland are all fighting for the 1 and 2 seed. Still pretty wide open. I'll talk about who probably has the best path to get there in a second. Houston again fighting with Cleveland for a playoff spot as well as Miami. I don't think that there's really going to be anybody else who's going to get into the picture. So New York still has a chance to get in there, assuming that Cleveland and Houston lose at least 1 or 2 games in the near future and Kevin continues to win out on some games. So New England and Miami, not clear who's going to win the East. It's clear who's going to win the West. It's largely clear who's going to win the North and the South. So the 3 division winners are pretty clear. One of them's not. The AFC's has a lot more clarity in it than say the West. The NFC does. Sorry. If we look at Pittsburgh and their remaining schedule, they have Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Minnesota. Um, this schedule probably favors Pittsburgh. That's not a overly hard schedule for them, and I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone. But as you can see, only one of the teams has a winning record, and that's Cleveland. When you look at Tennessee, what you see is they also have Cleveland, but they also have Houston. So they have 2 teams with a winning record, so that's not as clear of a path for them. And then, of course, if you look at Oakland with our remaining schedule, they have Buffalo, Denver, San Diego, Jacksonville. So if I had to rank it, I would probably say that Oakland has the easiest path to getting to the number 1 seed, although Pittsburgh, if they lose only 1 game out of the rest of the remainder of their games, they have the game in hand over Oakland. But we'll see if that plays out. So Oakland has the easiest path to the 1 or 2 seed. Pittsburgh second, Tennessee is third. And it should be interesting just to see who ultimately gets it. When we look at the battle for the playoff berth, As you can see, Cleveland has not the easiest schedule going forward. Baltimore and Denver should be wins for them, but they play two of the top teams in the AFC in Tennessee and Pittsburgh. They need to get a win from one of these just to secure the spot. But I'm pretty confident if they win two of these, that'll get them to 10 wins. They'll be 10-6. They should be okay at that point. If they get to 11 wins, they'll definitely be a lot safer. From Houston's perspective, as you can see, they have a pretty easy schedule ahead, minus Tennessee. So Houston definitely, I think, will make the playoffs because the schedule is very, very favorable to them. New England versus Miami, when we're talking about who should win the division, uh, they have what is arguably a harder schedule because they still have played Buffalo, New York, and Miami. Denver's an easier game for them. That should get them to 8 wins. They're going to have to win at least two of these games in order to win the division. And Sharks probably really keenly aware of that. When we look at Miami, they have to play San Diego again. Favorable for them, although San Diego presents a little bit of a matchup problem for them. And the same thing with New England. They need to win two of these games to even be in the picture. So actually, they need to win three of their next four just to get to 10 wins and have a chance at the playoffs. Otherwise, they got to win their division, which means that this week 17 matchup with New England becomes very, very important. I don't want to leave New York out because mathematically they're still in it. They could still win the division. I think they're going to have to win the division though, or Kevin has to win out just to get to 10 wins. But if he can win all three of these games, he will knock off two of the opponents and hand them a loss, and then he's just got to beat Kansas City. So as you can see, the AFC East is still really kind of a mess. All three of these teams have a chance at it. I would say that it's hard to say which one has a better chance. I think New England has the safer route in the not division game, but they all have to go through each other to get there. Um, Mentioned Tennessee, Houston, Oakland. Out out in the West, it's just going to be wild because they have to play each other again. Seattle and Arizona. So Barry has a chance to be able to get to 10 wins because New York and Kansas City are favorable to him. And when you look at the teams that he's lost to recently, barring Denver, but again, Prince has Denver and he's a good, decent coach. He's just having a bad season. Oakland and Carolina are hard teams to beat. If he can solve his defense problem, I think he has a chance. Simon, if we look at his remainder of his schedule, again, he's got Barry and Stuart, so he has a good chance. He has favorable matchups with Philadelphia and San Diego, so that should give him a pretty good chance. And then if you look at Stuart, who's kind of one game ahead, he's going to have a bye coming up. You can see that he's got probably the harder of the schedules because he's got both Dallas and Arizona. So if he wins out, he should be able to get himself into a position where he can win the division. But really, the only win that may be sure for him is against Seattle, and that's not even really true because Seattle is starting to play a little bit better. So if I had to look at these three, I think Los Angeles and Arizona have an easier path to the playoffs than San Francisco does, but we'll see how that plays out. With Green Bay and Detroit, again, Green Bay has a little bit harder of a schedule. From they have Atlanta on it. Minnesota's starting to get a little bit hot, so you got to keep an eye on them. Chicago is having some issues, although Cotton could turn that around, and then Cincinnati. So it's not a horrible schedule for them. But if I remember correctly, Detroit has a little bit easier time with the fact. Well, never mind. They have Carolina. So it's going to be really hard to call who's going to win this one. So lots of things still playing out, as you can see. If we look at the league leaders, what you'll see is that Witten is still leading. Campbell's up there. You have William Reno. Indianapolis is a CPU team if you'd like to take them. They have a good base, and as you saw, they'll probably have the #1 draft pick in this year's draft. Adam Johnson is leading the league in touchdowns. That's not abnormal for Peter's quarterbacks. Schaefer, who's largely been driving the record at Tennessee, having a really good year too. Rushing yards, Church is up there. Garcia, Laney, all having really good seasons. This will be the first season you don't see Lackey or Ford up there, as both have gotten old. Be interesting to see who wins the rushing title. Rushing touchdowns, it's pretty wide margin. Maurice Edwards is doing really well there. No shock here that Desmond is up there, but he'll have some competition from Hammond. If you look at this, largely these two correspond to two of the top quarterbacks in the league, and then of course you can see Bittner's also up there as well. King is really helping drive also the Cleveland story with BioEagle doing well. And then, of course, touchdown wise, Peter throws a lot of touchdowns, so there's no shock there. Sacks, Sousa's well ahead of everyone else. He's probably going to win the sack title. But if you look at it, Dayton and Kenny High from New York are having a really good season. Kudos to Kevin for turning that defense around. That's largely been an afterthought in past lives. And then no one is really picking off a lot of passes. Performance-wise, Witten and Johnson are fighting it out with Garcia. And that's kind of how it plays out. So it'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds. Like I mentioned, the NFC North is still up for grabs. The South and the East and the NFC are pretty much locked down with Carolina and Dallas. Carolina should win the 1 seed. The West is pretty much a wild Phil. And then on the AFC side, it's really a battle for the 1 and 2 seed between Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and Oakland. Uh, and then you have Cleveland and Houston, who look like the clear favorites to get into the playoffs. And then the East is wide open in the AFC between New England, Miami, and New York to see who will actually win the East. I do think in terms of the East, you're more than likely going to have a scenario unfold where it's like the NFC North, where you have to win your division to get in. So that's it for now. If you want to join, we're on Discord. Let us know. The links are on the video. Thank you for your time tonight. And we'll talk to you this weekend when I do another quick update video.